Welcome back, everybody, to Lit versus Genre. My name is Steve,
And I'm Jeff.
and we are here on the
We,
road, again to Taren Ferry. Um, I think the thing I wanted to start talking about. I don't know if this is the best place to start, but I wanted to talk about Man Bat for a second here.
let's
Uh,
do this.
let's talk about Man Bat because I. It's funny after reading this chapter, I really
hmm
still should not really know what this thing actually is because it has not been revealed in the text, like what it is, what it looks like. Just it's this thing flying after them. But I now unfortunately do know what it looks like because I rather stupidly was trying to think of the picture for the that would go on the front of our last video, and I like typed in Drakkar,
Oh,
and so now I know it's just Man Bat. That was dumb because my first instinct was to go look for the cover, find the bat that Jeff was talking about in the cover. And that's what I
nice.
ended up doing. But like when I first looked, the really funny thing about that is like there's, like slightly different versions of that
Mm,
original cover. Usually what they're changing is the font type and size of the title of the
right,
book. But depending on what font you choose or how you size that, either you don't see the bat at all or
right.
it's like muddy as all heck. Like it's like whoever was the dude who was picking out the font, I'm not even sure that guy realized there was a bat there. Like he's just like, let's go with this, and you don't see it all. And then finally, I found that one where they used just a really skinny font
hmm
for the title, and you see the bat really clearly. But I thought that was really funny through like different iterations of the book. The bat has just gotten lost at times in the top
That's
of
why I
the
freaked out when we went back to the cover of this version of it. I was like, "Where's the bat? It's not what?"
thing. Yeah,
And you know what's really crazy? If you had used the glossary, Drakkar is not there. It does not tell you.
that's
So
wild.
which I suppose maybe I hate to say it, but maybe furthers your point that Jordan was aware of what would be a spoiler or not, and he didn't want people to know early what the Dakar looked like.
Right,
Maybe.
right.
Right?
Yeah, I think he clearly didn't want us to know, but now because of the wonders of the internet, I do know. I've even found like the mock-up Magic the Gathering card for the Drakkar. But until this point, I would not have known that it was not like a dragon like I initially thought. Except also then Scott said in the comments, I don't think it's a spoiler to say there are no dragons in this world. But I was like, wait, but that is kind of a spoiler because why would I think there would be no dragons in this world? I mean, like, what did they name the dude after? If there were like no dragons, I guess maybe dragons are mythical here as they are in our world, but I'm like, there's a dude literally named the dragon.
Oh,
So it would
I still
not.
want to answer that
Oh, there's
question.
the answer to that question. Okay.
Yeah, what I will say is that the map that happens that we get in two chapters, so it's at the end of the next chapter, there is a dragon on that particular map.
Right.
Um, but so yeah, I think the dragon's a tough one to know because yeah, there's someone that's called the dragon that would make you think they're probably named after some sort of creature, either alive or mythical. And so yeah, I mean, since dragon is known, I would think we would expect the characters to call it a dragon if dragon is known. But you're right that Drakkar is very close to dragon, right? And so this also gets into our conversations before about naming and that the name can have a sense of what that thing is supposed to be.
Right.
So, it is understandable. You're like, maybe this is like a dragon offspring, like a wyvern or like a hydra or something, yeah. So now though, man bat.
Man bat. 100% man bat. Okay. Good, good, good. So the other thing I found funny right at the beginning of this is like, so going through Rand's head as they're galloping along, he like sees Egg riding on Bella, and he thinks,
Right.
would he leave her behind? First, I thought that was like a bonkeroo's kind of thing for him to be thinking here. Again, I think like playing with this, he doesn't know what he feels, blah 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 blah, and then he like quickly though reverses himself after having this thought. Would I just leave her? And then he's like, no, I wouldn't.
So this would be ambiguous pronoun usage. That would actually be referring to Lan.
Uh, wait.
Yeah, because it says Lan had not wanted Egwene in their number. Would he slow for her if Bella began to flag, or would he try to leave her behind? So those he's are in relationship to Lan, at least in my read.
Ah, Rand kept an worried eye on Bella when
Right.
he had said, and her rider, when he had said the Shaggy Mare could stay with the others, he had not meant on the run. That's still Rand. Because he had
Um,
meant the Shaggy Mare
yeah,
could stay with
that's
the
what I mean.
others.
Yep,
She
yep,
kept
yep.
up now only by running as she had not thought she could. Lan had not wanted Egg in their number. Would he slow for Bella getting Egg, or would he leave her behind?
Right.
Ah, okay. The Aes Sedai and the Warder thought Rand and his friends were important in some way, but for all of Morain's talk of the pattern, he did not think they included Egg. Gotcha, yeah. Alright.
No, but it's understandable because we had all those previous he's earlier in the paragraph, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, should this have been a paragraph break? Should this have even had a contrast word, right? But Lan had not wanted to go in their number, so on and so forth. Would the warder slow for her, right? Like it would have been, he's using Lan and warder pretty interchangeable, so it would have been pretty easy to go like, would
Right.
the warder slow for her if Bella began to flag, or would you try to leave her behind, potentially.
Yeah. Alright. Yeah, I'm getting annoyed at these pronouns now. I'm pretty annoyed at it. I'm just
Pronoun wars.
really annoyed at it. Okay. Cool. So that's good. I'm glad Rand's not being an idiot. Uh
That's not quite as bad. Rand has a nice moment there, right? Where he's like, I'll stay behind. I'll stick with her if she needs, right?
yeah. All right. So they go for a while. They stop outside of this town. You think they're gonna be able to like kind of have a break here and go into this town, but no, Man Bat immediately attacks. Right away.
No rest for the wicked. No rest.
And oh, but this is not before like Moraine uh, revives every horse to make them like not almost dying. Like Cloud's like foaming from the mouth. Cloud is like really. I was kind of surprised that. I mean, maybe Rand's just focused on Cloud, but I feel like I
Right.
was like, damn. And then, and then we find out like Bella's actually the best horse. Like Rand was massively underselling Bella, and Bella's like, actually, oh, I'm fine. I'm cool.
Bill's like, I got this.
Right.
Which
So
is Bell's the star of the show. Listen, Bell is a very important character, and that's why they tweeted an announcement about it, right?
mm,
Because they know that there's the love for Bella. I just want to say, I don't know if this moment hit you at all, but I did have this moment of kind of hope for rest for them because, like, we didn't get to experience the celebration, right? Because the Trollocs came in, destroyed everything, right, and didn't get there in time, so on and so forth. So it's like, oh, maybe they will get like a glimpse of that. Maybe they will get to sit down. Maybe they will get to have some stew. And I was like, stew sounds nice. And then, or like mutton or whatever it is. And then, yeah, then there's just attack. So I thought it
Jeff,
was a nice little fake out.
I am so glad that they did not get any of the celebration. I'm glad the celebration didn't happen in Edmund's Field. I'm glad the celebration didn't. You really want to read about people eating mutton? Like, I don't want to read that. Like, you don't want that.
It sounds nice. I mean, they've already been on the road and running. Some relaxation would be nice. But I think, again, Jordan's making the right call, of course, to the bait and switch is what I'm referring to. Like, maybe they'll
Mm,
get it right, no, they won't, right? And so that, like, keeps the tension alive.
right, right. Okay, so this thing attacks then again, and like, Cloud takes off running.
Mhm.
This I had a little bit of trouble seeing. I'm probably just misreading something else that's gonna like piss me off to no end. But like, uh, Cloud reared, lifting him into the air. Ran clung helplessly, hoping against hope the horse would quiet 10. Quiet 10. The shock of landing jarred Ran to his teeth, but suddenly the gray was still. So where did Ran land here exactly?
Dude, I cannot tell you how completely lost I was in this part.
Yeah.
Like, I was reading through this going, like, as I've said before, I love this series, my favorite series, but in this part, when it is actually a little bit further for me, further up, when it says, right when the wind of the Drakkara's wings beat at Ran, feel like, it's just a little bit further. And then it says, for Cloud exploded into the air with a scream of his own. I totally thought,
Oh, Cloud was
right
dead.
there.
You thought Cloud had
I
just ate
thought
it right
Cloud was
there.
flying through the air with the Drakkara. Like,
Yeah,
I thought
yeah.
straight up picked up Cloud because it says exploded, right? So how far is that explosion? So I'm expecting clouds in the air, right? And then I'm thinking that like Rand's hanging onto the rings and then being dragged across the ground because I'm imagining Cloud in the air and him like being dragged about, right?
Right.
So that was totally something that I got lost on. And then yeah, with this other part, when I did realize it was all happening on the ground and that Cloud had more just kind of bolted away,
Mm-hmm.
and then this exact thing you're saying, I thought Rand had maybe scrambled up onto this saddle. But
Right.
what I think he's actually saying is that he's got maybe like his arms around the I can't even think of the name of it, like the front part of the saddle, and then so he's like lifting up the ground, and his feet had been on the ground, and then so when he's landing, his feet are hitting the ground. But yeah, it's definitely, it was not clear to me.
I think he was so that jolt must have shaken the full animal too. He thought. I
Mhm.
think he would like got jerked up and landed on the saddle, and that's the jolt that shook him. I don't
Okay,
know,
so that's
man.
what I thought. Dude, that's what I thought too, right? Straight up. I was like, okay, he's on the saddle, horse went up, horse lands, he's shook on the saddle, Cloud is shook on there. But then later, Rand is the only one who's not mounted. And
Uh,
he's got his barrel to get up. And I was like, wait, he's not? I thought he was on Cloud the whole time. So yeah, that was the moment later that I was like, I guess I misread the whole jolting. So yeah.
All right. Okay. I'm glad I'm not the only one. I guess I didn't like pay that much attention to this because I was still trying to think of what chittering in the dark dimness of a nightmare
Oh
actually
yes.
means. I don't know what that means.
I was like, Rand does have some nightmares. This was a straight callback to
Well,
Rain.
I don't know. I don't know what chittering is. I don't know why his nightmares are dank. Or maybe I do. I don't know. So,
Right, exactly.
all right.
Yeah, I did love that. I love that you marked it. Because yeah, I think again, like chittering, I imagine isn't chittering like
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know. I see an image in my head. It's like it's not chittering teeth. It's like chittering laughter or like chittering like right? Like I don't know. I feel like it's like little quick sounds.
Yeah.
Um, but it's like, like the scuffling of like rats' feet or like, someone's like chittering laughter kind of who's
Yeah.
crazy kind of thing. But yeah, it's got a fun image. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds cool. It's just another thing where,
Right.
like, yeah, when you're like writing, you're always kind of weighing those two
Right.
things against each other. Like, ooh, this sounds cool, but does it mean anything that is going to like paint a picture in a person's mind, or are they just gonna go, yeah, that sounds cool? Um,
It does make you wonder how does wings flapping sound like chittering, right? But it just I sort of imagine like when you watch a movie and there's like these extra sounds that of evil near something evil sort of thing.
yeah.
So yeah, I do
Well,
get also what you're saying.
even there, the subject of that has to be the wind.
The wind, yeah, the wind is at him. Yeah, why is the wind chittering? Yeah, it's wild.
Yeah.
It's crazy, crazy.
Anyway, I did like he comes back and like everybody like it's just chaos and everybody's
Total chaos.
horses are going crazy. That was
I
pretty
love that
funny.
Moraine land. That like everyone's going crazy, and then my favorite, maybe it's my favorite line in this whole chapter, is Moraine sat straight in her saddle, the white mare stepping delicately away from the confusion, as
Mm,
if nothing was there. Like I just totally imagine this like really prim horse like sidestepping a little bit, giving everyone like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
So I enjoy
Just
part.
kind of
And that con
just kind of distastefully going like, ugh,
right.
you cretins, what the heck?
Precisely. More about the horses being like their characters, right?
Yeah, yeah. Uh, all right. Oh, there's
Or
something
they're
else I wanted to talk about, and you'll have to tell me if this is in other lines, but there's like, is it somewhere else in this chapter where you're getting more hints that like Rand kind of has some, maybe some like fighting instincts that he does not know about because he's drawn his sword right here when everybody else is like we got to get the heck out of here. He's kind of being like a ding dong and drawing his sword as if to fight it, and then he's like embarrassed about it. Oh yeah, it says right here he put his hand on the pommel and reached the saddle in one leap as if he had been doing the like all his life. So I was like, okay, I'm kind of getting some sense that like I don't
Mhm.
know. I don't know how to interpret this. I mean, he wouldn't. Oh yeah, he's maybe a reincarnation. We're saying
Right.
from Happy Dreamland. So I guess maybe we're like seeing some of that kind of happening.
Yeah, it could be. I definitely didn't quite catch on that. I mean, we've seen him sort of growing more accustomed to it because we had the other scene. Well, I confused the order of the scenes. It's happening later that there's a moment with him and the sword and land. But yeah, you're right. I think this is an interesting moment where he's unaware drawing it. Now, I feel like that could be anything that like he just happens to have the sword, so he's drawn it. Just like if he happened to have a stick, he would have held it up with something evil flying around him. But you're right, that other line about the as if you've been doing it like all his life, with those two things happening so close, it does beg the question, is he not only getting some weird dreams from Luz Theron potentially, if they are connected, but is he getting more from that potential connection? So
Hmm.
no, I think that is a really cool part, and it's a fun mystery to wonder about for sure.
Yeah, the other thing I kind of noticed about this chapter is whenever Jordan was writing this chapter, clearly the neighbor's dog was just
I was
barking its
waiting.
full head off.
I was waiting. I, dude, I love the dogs in this because having lived, well, I knew you've been there in the small town. Like if you walk around, like uncertain houses, the dogs go crazy in terms of like farmhouses. The
Mm,
dogs like protecting that area. So one, I think you're totally right. I think he
I think
definitely
it's
experienced this in some way, shape, or form, right? But it really brought me into it. I was like, oh yeah, dogs like everywhere barking at things, but then like going away. So yeah, I enjoyed it. But it's because we get those other senses into the equation too, right? We're getting some sound into not just the visuals, but also what is he hearing?
yeah. All right, okay, two things I want to talk about here. So one, Egg's
Mhm.
having a grand old time with this. And I'm like, okay, but everybody is riding for their lives here. I don't know if she'd be smiling excited delight. I think there's like a difference between like I wanted adventure, and I guess he like kind of talks about this later.
Mhm.
There's also another thing I don't think I highlighted it, but it gets repeated where he talks about the shine in her eyes, and it's like a direct
Yeah.
repetition of this of like what a great time Egg is having and all of
I,
this. It
I
just
wonder if that was a mistake, honestly, because I know it's the same and it's like the exact same phrase. And I'm like,
yeah.
is this meant to be? But yeah, it was weird because when I went to try to find it, when I was like looking right before, I couldn't. But I swear there is that phrase, the gleam in her eyes is not all the moon, twice.
Right.
Um, But in terms of her excitement, it does seem kind of wild that she's even with this crazy bat thing screaming and chasing them because it was literally just the Drakkar Streak challenge tonight, just right above, right? But then we do also have Rand reacting the way we're reacting, right? Like, really? She's having this good a time, and then Rand is shocked by it and swallows a fly because of he's so shocked that she's looking.
I think though, but I feel like this is desire on Jordan's part to like characterize Egg in this way. That's not particularly surprising because we know Egg has wanted to go on an adventure.
Right.
But so he wants to hit that drum again, but it just doesn't feel super authentic to me here, right? Like it feels like unhinged a little bit, you know, like in a way that I don't feel like he's inhabiting really what she would be thinking in this moment, even with liking adventure. I think it's just like, oh, this is the character beat that I set up, so I'm just gonna ring it again for the reader so that they get it. But I'm like, I get it, man. She wants adventure. I don't buy that she's smiling in excited delight right
It's a
now.
weird moment for it to be happening because there's no win associated with it or no
Right.
something. I guess being chased by something that's supposed to be worth in Trollocs and Fades that you just saw destroy your whole home. It does seem like a strange moment. I would agree. Like I think there's a moment where this is hit later very effectively. But this one I can agree. It's like, why right now? And it does feel a little almost edited to me there because his reaction comes slightly late. Yeah, because it says his mouth dropped open in surprise. But the
Uh-huh.
surprise is about seeing her smiling in excited delight. But then we got this sentence in between, and then we're like, what precisely is causing the surprise? Which sort of almost like kills that beat. So I do wonder if this is something that was like there and then not there, or something that was
Right.
edited down, but then it doesn't quite work because it doesn't feel finished. It doesn't feel as smooth to me as the rest of the story normally does. So it makes me question how that moment happened, for sure.
Right. Oh yeah, and there's the gleam in her eyes right there. So that does kind of go to your theory that maybe like that was and here's the thing. With repetition in writing, I do not blame the author even remotely for like repeated phrases, repeated things because you and I
Sure.
both know when you're writing it, that's going to happen. You can't possibly hold in your brain, you know, oh, chap, like even just pages later, you're not going to hold in
Right.
your brain that you have that. But this dude had an editor and,
Right.
and this editor sure as heck should have been like, "Hey, Robert, you repeated this here and here. Why don't we cut one of these?" You know, like that's your whole job is basically
I
to do
do wonder
that.
if it is a mistake. Like, I wonder if this sentence isn't even supposed to be here. That it's just supposed to be Egwene's face in the moonlight was smiling in excited delight. His mouth dropped open in surprise until it swallowed the bite and he sent him in fit of coughing, right? Because I wonder if the gleam in his eye was not from the moon is really just supposed to be in the other part. But I will say in terms of like editor arrows, true, right? They are supposed to catch him. But I mean, it happens so often. I don't know. Well, I mean, I guess I don't know for lit as much, but it is quasi common to find, small errors here and there. Though seeing a whole sentence it's almost identical, you don't normally see that. So it
Yeah.
is
Well,
strange.
just other repetition in this alone. I thought the and hope and the and hope was a
Right.
weird touch. One, especially because
Yep.
one is directly Moraine's quote,
Yeah.
and the other is the narrator. And then
That one was weird for me too. It was. I was like, wait, exactly as you say, because it's two different people,
right,
basically.
right, like
I was
the
like,
weird, you know, the omniscient narrator suddenly is saying the same thing that she's saying, and then it says it had to have been hours, and then it must have been hours. And so, like,
right.
there's a few things in here where I think the editor was asleep at the wheel. I don't know who. I didn't look back at the front to shame whoever that was, but I'm like, look, you
Well,
could have just cut
I
that
know
at
that
the
his
end.
wife I know his wife is a primary editor, but also the more I get into self-publishing, I know there's multiple levels of editing that are happening.
Mm.
And I mean, I could be wrong about this because I'm far from an expert, but I think what we're getting into is like the copy editing side of things that watches for like a repetition of phrases and punctuation and stuff like that. But of course, they might then wonder, was it supposed to be this way? Like, does Jordan and the editor want the maybe Moraine saying in hope then affects Rand's internal thought, which is kind of the narrator. So now he's thinking it, you know what I'm saying? So that I can see these kind of being sticky. Like maybe one person missed them and then the other one person thought they were supposed to be there for a stylistic reason and then they just got left. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
So I wonder if it's something like that
That
because there are different levels of editing.
that's interesting. Yeah, I guess as someone who aspires to be a published author, I should know more about this. But I wasn't aware that there would be like a separate copy editor like there would be on a in a newspaper, right? Like I had worked in a newspaper before, so I know what you're saying there is correct. I had an editor, but that editor wasn't, catching typos, wasn't like doing stuff like that. Whereas, I don't know, I feel like these sort of things, like tightening up the prose. I mean, again, we kind of talked about earlier, like different versions of things and how editors will cut stuff down, and how like Raymond Carver's
Sure.
editor like just cut like at least a third to a third to like 4/7 of like everything that he wrote. So I don't know. I still feel like this is on the editor, whoever that was, to kind of catch some of these things. Was that really his wife the whole time? I mean, this was published by Tor originally,
Right.
right?
I mean, I know they worked as a team forever, and she was an editor prior to like these coming
Oh,
out.
interesting.
Um, and she, I may be wrong about this, but my head is telling me to say that she like quasi discovered him, but like I might
Huh.
don't. I will
Huh.
do some more research and get back on this. But yeah, I'll find some more out about that. But yeah, I
S-
know that she had been in the biz previously.
Yeah, Scott will tell us. Don't worry about it. Scott will
Why,
listen.
why,
Uh,
I was going to say, because we mentioned omniscient narrator, this chapter, it kind of blew my mind because, well, maybe it's in the next chapter, but there's definitely moments in this portion of the narrative where the story really goes, it goes omniscient. And I was like, wow, I had always viewed this story as like a tight third person narrative,
mm.
usually of Rand in the first story, but then branching out to other people later. But in this, there are some moments where it goes omniscient. So just
Yeah,
another
you don't hear this as like Rand's thought. The
right.
rest could only trust and follow. You do feel like
Yeah.
that's like a greater distance
Mhm.
narrator who's taking them all in. So, yeah, that's
Yeah.
interesting. But then we're
Right.
right back to, if you were
Mhm.
truly omniscient, you would just say it had to have been hours. You wouldn't put Rand to a sure, because then you're doing that to get back into his
Mhm.
head. So yeah, that's kind of interesting.
It's these moments, right? It's these moments where he wants to give you more insight into others. And I had always kind of viewed that as cheating, like, or something I would never let myself do,
Hmm.
right? And then you start to wonder, like, how much, you know, is it, you know, is it worth it, right? Like, is it worth it to make those little breaks if it's helping the narrative enough? Does it almost even feel more epic to a slight degree to like pull back and then go back, then reach back toward Rand and then be in his shoes again? I don't know. It made me really think about some stuff. So these were fun for me to go through with this lens that we do when we have these chats, for
Yeah,
sure.
I think it's
I keep saying,
janky, but I would.
well, I figured you have a reaction. That's why I brought it up, right? So yeah, what was yours? I thought you'd probably go with like, nah.
Yeah, it didn't happen a ton, but it feels like a slip, and that's the problem. Basically, if you only do it every once in a while, you're not setting a pattern for the reader. I mean, I suppose like if you teach the reader to read that way from page one, then yeah, do it, and it could be really cool. But like if you don't do it most of the time and then it slips, it's gonna feel like a slip, no matter what.
Well, that's what I wonder for like, I mean, if you've got a background in writing and you're very aware of those differences, I think, right, it's going to be jarring. But if not, like I'm thinking back to when I was first reading these in, high
Sure.
school and thing, I'm not noticing that. I'm maybe even happy to get some insight into what like Matt or Taren are feeling, because there's little moments like that that happen in these chapters. So, yeah, I just wonder if it's serving the narrative or alienating or yeah, it's an
Yeah,
interesting question.
it's definitely not huge, and I can certainly see like just reading past it and not thinking twice about it. But the next thing that's interesting. So now I started noticing this after we've been talking about not answering questions.
Oh yeah.
How about getting only the answer?
Oh, oh no, that was amazing. I actually was hoping we would talk about this one and I forgot there for a moment. When I saw you highlight, I was excited because yeah, isn't that just sort of because we just get this answer and it's like, what does it even mean? We sort of get an answer later on. Um, but yeah, no, I loved it. I absolutely loved it.
Well, not only
Yeah.
that, this is not the first time it's going to happen in these next two chapters.
Right.
I think at least three, just in these next two chapters, where you don't hear the question. It said somebody asked a question or must ask a question. You don't hear it. You
Oh, right.
only hear the answer. I was like, that's really interesting too. That this is suddenly like cropped up and is happening so much that I'm noticing it.
Well, we know Moraine has more information, right? Like, there's so much Moraine could tell us, like again, the Gandalf or whatever of his story. But getting it in these bits and pieces, I think really does, keep us wanting to read more, which I know is something that Scott mentioned as well, which I do generally agree with. Like, and that's the whole point of not giving answers so that you want to keep reading to hear the answer, right? Or here we want to keep reading to find out what was the question, what is this relating to? So completely.
Uh, yeah. I would like to talk more about that acronym at some point because I did, talking about like read and find out. I didn't even know. Y'all are so deep in your world. I didn't even know like what that acronym was. And then you're like,
Oh,
well,
wait,
read
which
and
acronym?
read and find out to find out what read and find out means.
Oh, I
Read.
didn't even know.
Oh,
I
you
didn't
didn't
know what
know
it meant either.
that?
I
Yeah.
don't know. I was like, I don't know.
Oh, well, I think this is a thing coined by your boy Sanderson. At least when I like looked it up. Maybe I'm
Oh,
wrong
really?
about that, but yeah,
What?
RAFO. And it also looks like laughing my ass off when you like first look at it. So you're like, wait, what? Oh, read and find out. Okay.
I think we should tell people that are listening that don't know what we're referring to what it is we're talking about. So there's an acronym which is I assume read WAFO, WAFO, right? Which I had not heard of, but please go ahead.
Oh yeah, no, just Scott dropped it in one of the comments at one point, and I was like, I don't know what that acronym means, so I don't know what you're saying. But now I've learned to look things up after I've found out about these things called glossaries. I was like, oh, let me look this up, which I did look up a couple things in the next chapter in the glossary.
Did you?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Well,
Three pan enough, huh?
I guess I should wait till we get there, but I forgot what the red Aja was,
Mm.
and then Moraine says something else, which is like turns out to be like the queen of the Aes Sedai or something, which I was like, I have no idea what this is, and it just tells
Oh,
you
yeah,
right
no,
in the glossary. Um,
yeah.
but yeah, let's kind of save that for next chapter because next chapter definitely we find out a lot of things in the next chapter. But here so the discussion I think I want to have here a little bit, and I'm sure
Mhm.
we'll get into this more in the rest of the book, but I want to talk a little bit about magic, and I
Sure.
also want to talk a little bit about like sometimes I feel like information is being given to me in like a weird way. And it isn't so
Hmm.
much that I'm mad about things being withholding. It's just that like so when I was reading this, Moraine says I can't do something, right?
Right.
Especially not from the back of a horse. They are not easily killed. So this makes me think, okay, Lan asked her to do something that would kill the Jakar.
Hmm.
And so, but she's like, I can't do that, you idiot. And we can only run and hope. Okay, so great. So then we start getting this mist, right? And
Hmm.
at first, like, I don't know what this mist, I mean, maybe it's just, well, surely the night was too cold for fog. Okay, so that seems like some magical
Right.
thing. But that seemed bad to me when I was reading at first. I was like, oh, if I'm like riding along on my horse trying to get away from this thing, and then there's this like creepy ass mist that is suddenly like popping up, I would be wigging out. I'd be like, that's not good. That's terrible. Okay, above them, the Jakar screamed in rage. Now,
Hmm.
they're not hidden yet at this point, at least not in my mind. Am I seeing that this is
Hmm.
actually succeeding in being camouflage or something at this point? So I don't really understand why he's screaming in rage, other than he's always screaming in rage. I mean, this is just what this bro does. He just like screams like dead people all the time. So then the fog gets bigger and bigger, Land says there's still only one place we can be going. That kind of sounds like this also made me think that like somehow my draw or other people are messing with them with this fog. Like Land saying like, look, and I guess he is kind of saying this, ignore the mist. There's only one place we can go. But that almost made me feel he was like saying, despite this, okay, this is a setback, mist, but there's only one place we can go, so just keep going. And then Moraine says, my draw are sly. I mean, okay. But that also made me think they're maybe doing the mist. My draw's doing the mist in some way. I will use its own slyness against it. All right. So I don't really know its own slide. Does it use fog all the time and now she's using fog? So but then Rand just knows. Rand just knows, oh, she's the one doing this. And I'm like, oh, really? You do, Rand? Or does the story need you to tell me this so that I know? And so we're just going to have Rand know that she's the one who is doing this. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, I do. It is strange. I know it's supposed to be live versus genre, but I will, on this particular one, say, I do agree it's, I don't know if I want to say risky or odd that Moraine would say, we just got to run and hope, but then she does something, right?
Right.
And through that, somebody could do that, right? Someone could just be like, no, we just got to do it, and I will also do this thing to help us without saying it, right? So I get that, maybe, I'm not maybe, clearly Jordan didn't want to spell it out, right? But it is odd to just basically say we got to hope, but then she is providing a solution.
Yeah.
So that's strange.
Especially after saying I cannot, which sort of sets you up that she's not going to do anything if she says I cannot. Now, I can buy that she's saying I cannot do some other unnamed thing, which I don't know what it is, that would have killed it. So instead, I'll do this. But the thing that's kind of wonky about that is that later on when she talks about, I love this in the next chapter. I kind of just want to jump to the next chapter where she
talks about being in the back of a galloping horse.
Right, she says galloping horse again. She also like flexes hard. She's like, there's only like 10 people, and I said I who could do what I just did. Check me out. But that she uses the same thing from the back of a galloping horse just threw me again, because you're like, it makes me think that's what she was saying at first that she was gonna do. It's just, so this is what I'm talking. I'm not talking about read and find out. I am cool with read and find out, although I do want to talk more about it, like how much I care about read and find out. Like, I think read and find out doesn't really work if you don't care what you're finding out about, right? Like, so like, you can't just go, I'm just gonna conceal things, because that alone is not enough. If I don't care about what you're concealing, then I'm not going to want to read and find out. But like, this is different than that, though. This is like a unclarity that I'm not interested in finding out. I'm just frustrated by.
Right. It's is so strange about that secondary phrase, because I know what you're talking about, the moment where she does flex about that she did something while being Wolfpack. So yeah, I will say this is problematic. I love the idea of it. I love the idea of hearing the end of a conversation as a way to wonder what happened in the beginning. I think that's great. I think that if we don't take the next chapter into consideration, that right now ending ambiguously with hope, but then she does something, problematic. I would also agree that why is the Drakkar screaming now? That would seem to indicate the Drakkar knows what she is doing.
Right.
Like the Drakkar realizes she is making some mistake and he's preemptively angry.
Right.
But then later we're told the Drakkar aren't that smart.
Right.
So it does feel like the Drakkar would scream in rage once they were covered by the fog, in which case much clearer that you would know that the fog is not the Drakkar's or Myrddral's doing, it's her doing to hide them. So yeah, that part is fine. It just needs to be a little bit later for clarity.
Mm-hmm.
So, no, I hear you. I do.
All right. But that is her doing that. They go and there's more
Oh,
dogs. There's dogs everywhere in this
I
like
did just want to say real quick about the last one. I think the reason why the story works is because though you have these moments of frustration, like I said, I thought Cloud exploded, maybe, I don't know. But it's like he knows it and very soon after then does give you the answer, right? But in some cases that's done very well. But in this one it feels kind of herky jerky, right? It doesn't feel smoothly done. But I will say that the moment that I really like is where you have Rand thinking about that magic mist is touching him, and that's freaking him out because Aes
right.
Sedai are so wild in the community. So I think like that's a moment that saves kind of a clunkier section because then we're back into this world and like, oh yeah, Aes Sedai, we should be freaked out. Oh, it would be weird to be breathing magic and you're worried that, they're attached to things that are really bad. So I think there's these little moments that help with continuing onward to keep reading.
Well, I think the
So
other
that's
thing that's yeah, I agree. I think the other thing that's funny about this is that Rand knows this is Moraine doing this right away. Whereas I feel like if I was in that situation, I'd still be questioning that. And
right.
I think that's funny because later on he questions something that I am sure Moraine did, right? Like he's
Oh,
like, did she
the
really do
whirlpool,
this? And I'm like, dude, you
right?
knew how'd you know she was the one who was making the mist? But here you're gonna be like, oh, was that her? Was there really not a whirlpool? And it just doesn't feel consistent to me. It feels like it's what the author wants at the time or what information that he needs to get across at the time. And I was, again, just kind of frustrated by that as
Oh,
well.
I mean, it's risky too that there's not as much of Rand in that, right? Like we don't get. I feel like if I turn part of this section into like a writing class or something, I would get slammed that Moraine responds to this thing about killing Drakkar, and then we get nothing from Rand for quite some time, right? It's just
Mm-hmm.
like them talking, the fog, feeling the fog, and there's like no reaction from Rand going, "What is she talking about killing? Is she talking about killing the Drakkar? What is this miss?" Like we don't have him sort of reacting to those moments,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I also do wonder if that's like a stylistic difference from the time. Like, is that something we're seeing more currently with fantasy writing? Like more because so many stories, especially for why are first person, right? Are people trying to get more of that first person feel in their third person by having more frequent thoughts from the character whose viewpoint you're in? Whereas we look at something a little older like this, we go some stretches without really hearing how Rand feels about something or what he
Mm-hmm.
thinks about something, which is also just interesting structurally to me. But anyway,
Yeah, I like, I kind of like that. I don't think you want to like, just give everything away. I don't think you want to,
sure,
just
sure.
have him reacting always. You want to be able to read into his reaction.
Mm-hmm.
And so it is interesting. I don't, when I complain about these things, I don't mean to sound like I want everything handed to me on a silver platter, which is I think what I'll be accused of in the comments. But I think there's like a big difference between like, oh, being able to interpret or, you know, have something having a
Right.
richness that it's not being handed to you versus like what is going on or inconsistencies. And like I don't know, I guess it's like a fine line between those things.
I mean, I really do think that if we had pulled that section out and like reviewed it in a class, not even thinking about who is the writer, we could talk about the ways that it was. That last part was a little clunky in terms of the way information was revealed. And so, yeah, that's what you're getting at is like it's not that information is withheld, it's how it's withheld and then how it's revealed. And does it feel realistic the way it's revealed? And in this case, how does Rand know about this? But yeah, like not the whirlpool.
Yeah, I think he really digs these roundabout ways of telling you things, which I do appreciate. I just don't
Mm,
think they always hit. Like this one, he never even saw a high tower. I mean, I guess he's referring to him being short there or something, or maybe I'm misinterpreting this. We get that he's
yeah,
Faraday. We get that like this other description didn't tell me that he was like short or whatever, but
yeah, I don't. No, actually, um, because yeah, we learned that the houses are taller,
Right.
right? Which I think is cool imagery that they got to actually walk up steps that are like as tall as a person to then be at someone's door, right? So actually, like these houses are like towers
Yeah.
in comparison to the two rivers, and the two rivers doesn't have, as far as we know, any towers or something like that. So it does seem odd that Matt would be making fun of him for something that it doesn't. But I think what it's a callback to is that there's a part where Rand talks about the people here having strange names. Um, and so I think what they're saying is that they seem to in this area have names that relate to something that they maybe would have done. And so I think Matt is making fun of the fact that like you got a person named Hightower, but they don't even know what a Hightower is because there's no Hightowers anywhere near where any of them live. So I think that's what he's going for. But yeah, it's definitely a deeper dive to like figure out why that would be happening.
Yeah. It's
It's right
just
there.
weird. What
Boats,
hilltop
right?
and stone boat? So
Yeah.
Matt's like, you would have seen a hill. Your name has to be a thing that you saw. Is Matt just like really bad at jokes? Is this what I'm like getting?
I mean, the dog joke was so good. How could he possibly not? And maybe he's not good at saying them aloud. I mean, that is possible. You could just have their dad because we don't have someone look at him like it doesn't make any sense. We just have Rand shushing him, so we
Right.
don't really know good joke or not. So it is. Yeah, it's that is a tough one for sure.
I mean, he snickered it, so it sounds like it's a put down if he's
Yeah,
snickering
he's having
it.
fun with it.
Uh,
He's putting him down for sure. But I think it's that they just think the names are silly.
okay.
Is what the answer is.
So Exhibit 1000 in that the Two Rivers folk are racist as hell. They're just racist as hell. And like they're gonna I do like in the next chapter like Land kind of like or Rand kind of like finally all grows up and has like a big revelation about
Yeah.
how racist he's been. But I mean like is everybody. And this is the exact same thing that they say about Ice and I. It's not even like anything different. It's like, ooh, they're sly and tricky and sneaky. And it's like,
I
oh,
mean, I do
come
love
on,
the
man.
fingers. I love that sentence though. That if you shake hands with them, you check, you got your fingers
Yeah.
afterwards. Like I love that sentence so deeply. I lied when I said maybe my favorite sentence was about the house, the horse delicately sidestepping. It's this one
Yeah.
about shaking hands, counting your fingers, because it's something we can all imagine, and it's really cool. But yeah, it's the classic outsiders, right? Like they seem pretty distrustful of outsiders, though. They have kept it to specific groups, but yeah, they definitely do it. Like the
Well, they also didn't
well,
like that other town. What I think there's a line about something where they talk smack about what
I
other
think
town they were at.
I think it was just Taren Ferry that they talk smack about.
Oh,
I have to go back and check, but still, yeah, they talk smack about Taren Ferry. They talk smack about Ice Sedai for sure, right? But then, like you're saying, we get this payoff later,
yeah.
where Lan talks to him about that because Lan calls him out for the way the Two Rivers folk talk about these people, right? So I like that that gets addressed, right?
Yeah, that's it. It was no, I like that. I thought it was funny, but I just don't want anybody telling me that they're not racist as hell because they are. They clearly are constantly, all the time. They just don't stop.
They definitely have viewpoints about people who are for sure.
I know you're gonna try and paint over this and be like, oh, this is just about outsiders. No, they racist.
I think my take is that I like that Jordan is showing this because it just feels really realistic to me that people of a small town or of anywhere have thoughts and opinions that are not always positive about groups outside of themselves. And I really enjoy that that does happen here because it furthers this idea that these people are from this small town. And so they've got this very insulated experience. And then we get to see perhaps that change over time.
Yeah, 100% agree. I don't mean to like bring this up to be like, well, I guess I am kind of tarring the Two Rivers people, but I think Jordan is too. I think like this is him being critical of their, small-mindedness, which, is you're already seeing like Rand kind of broadening his horizons in
Mhm.
everything, and I just think that's fully intentional, though. I think that's in there, and it's one of the things I appreciate about the narrative so far.
Yeah, for sure. So we ended up talking about a lot of very specific things in this chapter, but that's because there were some bumpy parts in this chapter. So I'm glad we got to go over those.
Yeah, let's shut it down. We're gonna go right into the next chapter next week and talk about crossing this fjord right here and some of the travails that happen along the way, which a lot of it really relates to this chapter as well. So these are gonna be a pair, I think.
Completely agree. As we talked about in chapter 11, we were referencing stuff from chapter 12, and that's because there are some but really interesting and sort of strange repetitions that do happen. So we'll be talking about those in chapter 12 and how Jordan continues this story onward.
All right, see y'all then, everybody.